I'm going to show you a couple more things to think about when you're planning out your file, particularly how to be mindful of the thickness of your actual light strand. So I went ahead, I imported an image, and then I did the trace, just like I showed you in a different video. But when I click on it, first thing I'm noticing is it highlights everything. And really all I want is this burger, for obvious reasons. So one thing I'll show you real quick, if you do a right click, or on a laptop, sometimes it's a 2-finger click, you can come and ungroup these. That means that these are all separate lines now instead of being one collective line. So I'm going to drag from the right corner. If I drag from the right corner, it'll select everything, even if I only kind of touch it. If I drag from the other corner, look at it, doesn't select anything until I've fully encapsulated it. That's not a super important thing to know, but if you don't know it, it can be frustrating. So I'll get rid of those. Now coming over to the burger here, let's think this through. So if I use a set of calipers and I measure my strand of lights, many people's lights have been coming out to be about 5 millimeters wide. Don't trust that measurement for somebody else's lights. You should go and you should measure that yourself. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a circle. And I'm going to make it 5 millimeters in both directions. So I have to unlock it so that I can change these dimensions. So 5 millimeters in both directions. And I relock it. Now that would be the skinniest, whoops, that would be showing that's the narrowest an area could be and my lights could fit through it. So if I line this up, right now none of my image is big enough for me to put those through. It's not a problem. I'm just gonna select it, whoop, right, it's all, so I gotta select it all. I'm just gonna drag it out until maybe it looks about the right size. So let's see. You think that'll fit in it now? I guess still not quite. Oops, wrong way. Alright, that'll fit. And if I just kind of carry it around, looks like it fits even in the most narrow areas. So I think this will probably work. Now some of these shapes it might not work in, right? That one. So I'm going to show you another skill. There we go. If you select an object, there's this tool off to the side that says offset. So let's watch. If I do an outward offset, whoa, calm down there, buddy. It'll take the existing shape and just expand it out. So maybe I offset by 1.5. I don't know. Let's see how that goes. And let's delete the original. Okay, so that just took that seed and basically made it bigger. So now this fits inside it no problem. Or, I don't know, we could do the opposite as well. Imagine I was looking at this triangle and thinking, oh man, I mean, this isn't true, but imagine this just didn't quite fit through there. Well, an option, instead of expanding the whole thing, instead of expanding the whole burger to be bigger, an option would be to click an inward offset and scooch in from what we had before to have a smaller triangle there. So that's just a useful tool to know what's going on there. Because you want to make sure, once again, you want to make sure that your lights can travel through with no issue. Now, you might even want to, if your lights are 5 millimeters wide, you might want to see, will 7 millimeters wide fit? So that you have space for some wiggle room. That's up to you. That's up to your design risk taking. I don't know. So let's do a quick estimate to see how big is this overall shape now that we've gotten it up to size. So it says the whole shape is currently 233 millimeters by 204 millimeters. 1,000 millimeters would be a meter stick. So I'm going to call that 250 millimeters would be a quarter of a meter stick. So 25 centimeters. That's a very reasonable size. I don't think you'd want much smaller than that, and I don't think you should plan to go too much bigger than that either. So I think right in that 200 range seems about right. Now, if I'm envisioning that the lights sit in this channel of material that gets cut, I also need to be aware that I want, let's do an outward. I want some space beyond that, and I don't actually want to get rid of the original on this one because I'm thinking I want some material beyond where my lights sit. Bump it up just a little bit more. Right, so this way the material will be removed right here. My lights will fit in this slot, and there'll still be some like wood or something right here for the sign to stay together. Now, we're doing good, but let's think planning, right? If I said I have my, no material, no material, no material, I start my material, I have material, there's this cut that goes all the way around, and my lights are going to sit in that cut. Well, what's this part of the hamburger going to attach to? And so you might be realizing you need a back plate to be able to sandwich some materials. Ooh, no pun intended. To sandwich some stuff too. And so we can just copy, paste. So that way we know it's exactly the right size and shape. And we can do a couple things with that. So let's talk cut. I select all of that. Right now it's on layer 00, which has settings of 12 and 95. That's pretty good. 1295 is what I typically personally use to just cut through anything. It'll cut deep, it'll cut hard. For wood, I wouldn't necessarily use 1295 for acrylic. Acrylic is more sensitive. But since I want to cut all these things, I'm happy with that. Nothing really needs to be on different layers, but down here I want to cut the outer ring so that it's the shape. So I'll put that one on black. How about I switch which layer this is so that it's more visible when there's different layers. So I'll put it on orange. And I'll make orange be the 1295. Which means I can just get rid of that. So I'll put that on orange. Now I think I can get rid of that. Okay, I'll just leave that for now, but I won't do anything with it. All right. Control Z is super useful in case you're not used to using computers. Okay, so I want to be able to select everything on the inside, but it's hard to grab it right now. So I'm going to unclick Show. I'm going to select it all. I'll put it on, I don't know, red. And then I can re-click Show so that it wasn't in the way. Now, the reason I kept the internals, right, because I almost don't need this red stuff at all, right? I could have the backing plate right here and then all the cuts that attach onto the backing plate. But realistically, I don't know where to put the seeds. I don't know where to put the triangle if I don't have some direction. So that's what I'm going to use this red for. It's just going to do a real light etch so that I can see where things are supposed to line up. So I've got the laser cut settings here. You probably won't have access to this, but in the video, you can just pause the video and look at this. Let's see, for cutting plywood or MDF, if I just want to engrave a line, it says 500, 8.5. For MDF, engraving a line, 10, I'm sorry, that's cutting. Engraving doesn't really say. So let's stick with engrave a line 500, 8.5. Okay, so, oh, that worked out well. But you just double click, edit 500, 8.5. Okay. So now I'm going to select everything. Right, I don't need to select the dot, but I select everything. I'm going to do preview real quick. So the laser comes in from the edge, starts doing that. I think that's what I want for it to do. Then it's going to jump over here, do all of that. Okay. All right. Sometimes it's nice to have this use selection origin on. So again, let's move that somewhere where it would be troublesome so we can see what would happen. If I had a bunch of just kind of fluff on here and I selected, if I selected just this, but that existed, preview, you see how it starts me all the way off in this corner? That's because of the dot, even though we're not printing the dot. So if I say selection origin, it's gonna say, oh, he really only cared about this stuff. I'll start my laser just over there. That's gonna help us in terms of being able to fit on the laser bed. Otherwise, sometimes if you include everything, the laser thinks your project is too big for it to accomplish that. So we'll select these, use selection origin. We're looking pretty good right here. We'll save this UDF file. We could do some tabs maybe. All right, I'll show tabs just in case. So on here, I click that. Can put in some tabs, automatic. I guess they've already got some. But you'd just do them in here. You don't need a ton of tabs. Ooh, okay, yeah, one other thing I can show. Okay. So if we're processing through this, when it comes down to the bottom, look at it. Completely cuts out the shape before it starts doing our little engrave on it. But that might mean the shape wiggles around. So I'm going to flip-flop the order of that. I'm going to take the red and I'm going to move it as more important than or sooner than the orange. So now when I do the preview, we're actually going to end up starting with that etch, and then we cut it out. Okay. I don't exactly expect you to have remembered all of this, but these are going to be some of the things that when you call me over for help, I'm going to ask, have you made the circle? Have you decided where the lights are going to sit in a channel, and if you need a backing plate for it to sit on? So those are all things that'll be really helpful for us. Eventually, at the end of the process, you'll plug in a flash drive and save the UDF file or UD5 file to it. But I probably want to be there for that part because I probably want to look at your preview before we actually send it to the laser. Anyway, that's all for this video. Thank you.